us in the ancient Egyptian mysteries. Since you're doing the theme of symbolism, I thought we'd go to discuss one of the fundamental symbols of ancient Egyptian spirituality. And by fundamental, I really mean fundamental. Heru is pretty much about as fundamental as you go. Um, the main characters of the Asar Resurrection are all fundamental, and he's arguably the actionable, the most important actionable character. So I'm not going to go into detail into the Asar Resurrection. I'm We'll go into a little bit of it, the basic foundation of it, but I'm assuming that most of us will know, or there will be resources given for more details. The subtitle is Exploring the Esoteric and Philosophical Dimensions. Author Dr.Muata Ashby, scholar of ancient Egyptian spirituality. This presentation explores the profound symbolism of Heru in ancient Egyptian mysticism, revealing insights into human consciousness and spiritual transformation. Well, I do this sometimes. We'll start with dictionary definitions so that we can have kind of a starting point. And this starting point relates to where we live, where we hang out in the society. This is what the society bases its ideas on, its concept of truth and reality. So that's why we're looking at the definition, so we can start from there. And then we can have a basis to see if the ancient Egyptian conceptualizations are different, or they're off base, or if the dictionary definition is off base. So we're going to look at two terms that are in the Webster Dictionary. The terms are representation and symbol. Representation definition, according to the definition, means the action of speaking or acting on behalf of someone or the state of being so represented. The term symbol, the definition is an arbitrary or conventional sign used in writing or printing relating to a particular field to present operations, quantities, elements, relations, or qualities. So first of all, the term representation. I want to give you a kind of philosophical basis for the terms, these two words. In the definition, the action of speaking or acting on behalf of someone or the state of being so represented. This definition accepts or takes it for granted that what is being represented is real and true. The issue is that when the dictionary definition is lived by, like for instance, you're given a job to represent a company, to go to another company as a salesperson to represent your company. We are taking it for granted that your company is real and true. And for that matter, we're taking it for granted, as accepted, as a fact that you yourself are real and true. So the idea of realism, the idea of reality, is embedded in the definition. Obviously, if we apply the philosophical understanding of what is something that is true, something that is true is always the same. It doesn't change. It is abiding. If your company came into existence one day, it was not in existence the day before, then it is by definition not real. If you yourself, who are the representative of your company, came into existence, you were born, you were trained, you grew up, you were trained to be a representative for a company. You yourself are not real by the definition of something that is true, and what is true is not. So therefore, we have already a philosophical problem with the term representation that is not being acknowledged in the dictionary definition. The word symbol as an arbitrary or conventional sign used in writing or printing relating to a particular field to represent operations, quantities, elements, relations, or qualities. This term also accepts as fact that what is being symbolized is something real and true. It has qualities, it has quantities, it exists. And you're using an arbitrary symbol to represent it. So, uh, for instance, everybody knows the symbol for the company Apple. What does an apple have to do with a computer? That means that it's arbitrary. They could have picked orange. They could have picked an eagle. That's arbitrary. It can be anything. Again, if what you are discussing is something that is arbitrary, it means that it does not stand on anything substantial. It does the representation or the relationship, and therefore it is illusory. This is the word that we were coming down to all along in our discussion for the last few minutes. Your representation and your symbols in modern society are illusory. It doesn't mean that there's nothing real going on, as we'll see. We'll find out what is the real and true thing. But it means that the way that the society is living by these definitions is illusory, therefore erroneous, and it leads you to ignorance and delusion. So from the get-go, the language is troubling and corrupting. Because you think about it, when you were born, you did not have any language, right? Do you come out of your mother and already speaking and giving conversations and talking to people and carrying on? No, you were bawling, you were crying, you were uttering gurgling noises and all kinds of things. You didn't even know what's what. You didn't even know that you came out of a womb. You just popped out and you feel pain and you have something crazy in your lungs and when it comes out, there's sounds coming out. You don't know what's going on. So a newborn baby has one thing that is certain, and the other things are illusory. The thing that is certain that you have when you come out is that you have awareness. Most people who are in the normal range, you have awareness of touch, awareness of the feeling, awareness of sound, awareness of sight, but you don't have any idea what any of it means. And why? Because you haven't learned a vocabulary to assign concepts to ideas related to objects in creation. Not until you do that can you cognize. Up until then, you are having an experience of existence without cognition. But the experience is shrouded in ignorance because you have no knowingness about anything. But you do have conscious awareness. But conscious awareness is shrouded in ignorance because there's been no learned vocabulary in order for you to assign the objects and the ideas conceptualization so that you can cognize about them. So you can have cognition, thinking about ideas, um, comparing ideas back and forth, recognizing who is this not this, who is this person, who's not this person. So when you are growing up and being socialized, you're being taught these representations and symbols, and you believe inherently that these representations and symbols represent something that is real behind them. And so you are told, for instance, the institutions of government have been there for 200 years, so they are real and they are good and they are true and but now, as you see in the news, you see all the corruption and all the delusion that people have about it. But you were taught that it's all good and it's all right and it's all correct and this is how things work, all based on illusory information that leads to a deluded mentality of believing in those erroneous ideas. Now, what is or what are representations and symbols good for? Because you need something. Because if you're a baby coming out and nobody teaches you anything about anything, nobody teaches you how to speak, about give you some vocabulary. What is the this is broccoli. This is an orange, and so you can know what you can do with it and be able to cognize. You can't survive. So from a relative perspective, these things have some utility. From a substantial and a abiding reality perspective, they are illusory and troubling and dangerous. Understanding symbolism of Kemet, representation is not reality. There is an ancient Egyptian proverb that speaks of a symbol is something that stands, well, this is our definition. A symbol is something that stands for or suggests something else by reason of relationship, association, convention, or accidental resemblance. Actually, this is also Webster. Now, the quote from ancient Egypt is the following: "Never forget, the words are not the reality, only reality is reality. Picture symbols are the idea, words are confusion." The takeaway: symbols in ancient Egyptian tradition were considered gateways to deeper truths beyond literal meaning, requiring initiatic understanding. So let's break down the quote from the Egyptian Proverbs. First of all, to not forget. This is a big problem of what happens. People come to a Khnum Nefer. Khnum Nefer is an ancient Egyptian study group meeting. You learn the truth about some issue, And when you're in class, you understand it very well. But then you go home dealing with your family members and your friends and the world and the confusions, everything's going on. It gets forgotten. And then you start basing your life again on the dictionary definitions. That's the first thing. So one should not forget that the symbols are not realities in themselves. They stand for or represent reality, but the reality is not the reality of the dictionary. The reality is the reality of the entity, the existence that brought all the objects that are perceived with the senses into manifestation. That is the reality. The objects that manifest that you can have access to through your senses are not the absolute reality. They themselves are representations of a higher reality. So when you have a symbol, the the symbol, if it's representing a higher truth or reality, is representing what is abiding, not something that is changeable or that is fleeting. For instance, if you have the ancient Egyptian symbol of Mu, which is water, it's waves, that represents the higher truth of the cosmic waters from which all existence is composed. The symbol can be representing or using a word to represent a particular ocean or particular river, a particular lake, but the higher abiding reality behind the symbol is the transcendental cosmic ocean of existence. So a symbol, the ideal symbol gives you the idea or concept of the higher reality of and that is your abiding principle. It's not you're the representation of your company, where you yourself are not real, your company is not real, and you're probably representing yourself to someone else who's also illusory. So the symbol here in ancient Egyptian language represents something that is abiding, that is manifesting as an object that can be perceived with the senses. And it can be used in a practical way, like for instance, you can have an hieroglyph that represents plants as a class. So and then you can have individual words that represent that have different phonetics, different vowels, different consonants, and if they have this determinative sign of say a tree, that can be used for all of the words, and the vowels and consonants change, but you know that all of these are symbolic of the universal and absolute concept of tree. So that's an example there. The key takeaway is that the symbols are used to represent a higher abiding reality that is manifesting as the time and space objects that we have access to through our senses. This idea, it really becomes hopefully very much understandable in the hieroglyphic terms that the ancient Egyptian language itself gives to the language components. First of all, the language, the writing is called Metud Neter, writing the divine words or divine words. Either way it can be translated. The individual symbols is Neter and then Med2. The individual hieroglyph signs that are used, those are called Tat. So several signs will be called Tattoo, but one sign is called Tat. And the Tat means a sign, it means a form, it means an image. In other words, it's a representation, a symbol. So the language is, from the get-go, it is acknowledging that it is representing something. It is an image of something, and that something is the real. The something is the netter. Something is the divine, the absolute, the transcendent. And it is the language, therefore, the signs are representing that higher abiding reality as stand-ins or as images, as stand-ins for the higher reality. So if you're studying the language, studying the writings and the conceptualizations, those are images, symbols of a higher reality. So that's what we say, even the wisdom teaching is not an absolute truth. It is a stand-in for the absolute truth. What the wisdom teaching does is that it helps you to grow, discover, understand intellectually so that you can go forth and discover the higher intuitional reality. Like going back to that baby that comes in that doesn't know anything. If that baby grows up, gets language, studies, and then it becomes a young adult, at least, say, and then they start shifting from the Webster Dictionary definition to the Kemetic definition, and then they start understanding intellectually that the science and the wisdom teaching is there to represent something that transcends. That is the proper use of the language. If the language does not do that, it means that it's referring you to more illusoriness. It's referring you to more objects and conceptualizations as if they are realities, and nothing in the world is a reality, an absolute reality. So if your language itself does not lead you or does not tell you that it's representing something that goes beyond the language, how are you going to, you're going to be stuck moving horizontally and not vertically because your language leads you to more illusoriness and therefore more confusion. So as an aspirant, one should keep this in mind all the time, as much as possible. As soon as your mind is concentrating or becoming aware of other things, but trying to bring this back to your conscious awareness as often as possible. And eventually, it becomes a mainstay of your awareness, your cognitive personality. You be aware of this in the background of your mind, even as you're doing other things or concentrating on other things. Okay, this particular slide is from a presentation from 2018 related to the wisdom of Annie and the Stela of Abu. And hopefully that should be in Commit TV. It's a video presentation on a PowerPoint. In any case, the topic of the wisdom of Shedi was what was being discussed. Behold his existence. This slide is relating to teachings that are given in the wisdom. And this is a wisdom text of Annie. This is not the Papyrus Annie of the Pertum Heru. It says, nu, or nu, aritke pai f sek keru. Take heed, what is seen by thee with thine eyes, that relates to his existence. First of all, take heed, meaning pay attention. This is important. What is seen, and by extension, what this means is what is perceived with the mind and senses. So the eyes, the ears, touch, taste, etc. That relates to his existence. If you look at this word, sekeru, the context that it is used, it means existence, it means design, so God's design, God's existence, God's manifestation. An arrangement. There's a T missing on the word. There's an arrangement that has been made. What you're perceiving is an arrangement of objects, an arrangement of matter to form different objects. What you're perceiving is divine intention, and the manner in which that the divine manifests, the manner in which the divine acts. Mark or plan of the divine. That is what you are perceiving. In other words, if you're looking at a tree, you're looking at a car, a dog, the moon, a mountain, a building, all those words are illusory representations. The higher abiding truth is that you're looking at the manifestation of spirit that is manifesting as the objects that you see in creation. That is what it is meaning. So you look at a tree, a dog, you look at a friend, car, a boat, a star, the moon. Whatever it is that you're looking at, you are not actually looking at that as an object that has reality in itself. It was not there in the beginning. It will not be there in the end. It came into manifestation in much the same way as when you have a dream at night, your dream world and the whole objects and you in your dream and your friends or your family or whoever's in your dream, all that is a manifestation of the higher reality, which is you who are sleeping on the bed. In the same way, the creation scripture tells us that Nebuchadnezzar, through Ra, through Kepera, created this reality, the objects that can be seen with the mind and senses, that can be perceived with the mind and senses. So therefore, just like the Apple computer uses the Apple symbol, the Apple symbol is an arbitrary, illusory, and the Apple computer business also. The Apple computer business and the Mac computer and everything that the iPhones and everything that they produce, those are merely rearrangements of the elements and into an aggregate that you call a phone or or not a PC, a Mac, a computer. All of those recompositions into a form that has a particular usage doesn't mean that it is real in and of itself. It has utility, but it doesn't have reality. In the same way, when you have a dream, you think that you're in your dream world, you're walking around. It has utility. You can go walk around, you can sit, you can talk to somebody in your dream, but it has no reality. Or we can say that the reality, not reality in and of itself, the reality is the one who has created the dream world. So in the same way, the objects of time and space, they have no reality in and of themselves. The reality that they have is owed to that entity that manifests them. And that is called, as I just said, the source of it is Nebuchadnezzar, the absolute. The effective cause is Kepera, the creator, who brought these objects into existence or into manifestation. And they're all composed of the same stuff, which we might refer to as matter, and that's called Nunu. I don't want to go too much into that line of the discussion. Suffice to say that Nunu, the primeval ocean of undifferentiated consciousness, has been caused to become differentiated into the forms that the mind and senses can perceive. And this is what the wisdom of Annie is talking about, that what is perceived, that is Sekeru. That is divine existence that is behind it, that has designed it, that has arranged it, and that is operating as per a plan from beginning of time to now and going forward into the future. And that time period is called forever. The time period that has a beginning and an end is called forever. And the time period that is started or that existed before time started, and it will go on after a time period ends, that is called eternity. The term for eternity is He. And the term for forever is Jeta. We're not going to go into that line too much right now. Takeaway is when you look out on the world, what you are seeing is God's existence, God's plans, God's designs, God's form, God's manner, God's character, etc. So if you had this idea, it means that God is everywhere because God's manifestation Like when you have a dream, you are everywhere in your dream world. It's all composed of you. Even what appears to be empty space is you. You are everywhere in that dream. If you have a house in your dream and you have a door in your dream, you walk through the door, you go into the house and you can sit on a chair. The chair is composed of you. You who are there are the you are yourself there in your dream is composed of you, the dreamer. Everything in the dream, everything in this creation, the universe, is composed of Nunu. Let's call it God stuff. God is manifesting. And guess what? You yourself are composed of that same existence. Your body, your mind and senses that are perceiving the other objects. But the absolute reality, because even though, think about it this way, when, like I said before, when you have a dream, your dream is not the absolute reality, it is a manifestation. So in this life, your physical body, your family, your job, a tree that you see where you're walking down the street, a car, these are manifestations of the divine, but they are not the absolute manifestation. These are temporary modifications. Just like your dream is a temporary modification of your conscious awareness. But if you were to take it in this way, think about how you would be living if you're living as if everything is divine. What would that do to your personality? Eventually, it would lead you to a perspective of oneness, of consciousness, or conscious awareness that leads you to existence absolute, to abiding feeling, abiding cognition, or awareness without cognition, let's put it that way, which is beyond the differentiation and the confusion of objects of time and space. It's beyond your confusion about yourself and who you are as a limited mortal being. Leads you to discover your abiding nature. And that's what it means. Su, Dit, Bao, He, and Aru. So the divine gives souls to millions of forms, images, appearances. So don't feel bad about the fact that your body, your life is an illusory representation, because it is a simple representation of something that is higher, something that is abiding, something that is actually true. So the truth of your life is not that you were born and that you're going to die one day. The truth of you is that you have a higher existence and you're merely perceiving your life through the mind and senses that are illusory and temporary. So this seals the deal. Su, Dit, Bao, He, and Aru. Your personality is the image that's being talked about here. It's an appearance, a temporary appearance that you're walking around on earth as a living being, apparently. But the divine has given you soul, and I don't have this particular slide here. It would fit really good. The next one, the next statement would be Kat ta and ba pet. And that means that the body belongs to the earth and the soul belongs to heaven. So the soul transcends, the soul goes on. As when you shed your body and it dies, it goes back to the earth because it's composed of earthly elements. So the soul is merely associating itself with the body to have experiences. Arike, as it is on the top, arike means what is perceived, what is seen, what is. So that is the purpose of your existence on earth, to perceive the objects, but also to recognize and discover the true essence of who you are essentially, which is the divine that has given you a soul. The soul being the transcendental aspect of yourself. By the way, that image is not of Sage Annie. That's just an image. There is no image that I'm aware of. This is Amenemope. This particular slide is based on that. Now we're coming down to, now you've got a whole philosophical basis. Now we're coming back to the concept of Heru. In the Temple of Assad, and this is the book that it comes in, there's a reference to Heru, and this is just one out of hundreds of references that you can find. So this gives you the meaning of the symbolism of Heru, the representation of the concept of Heru. Seba'a ne subiti menmatra anatej nu mesu. This is the wisdom hall of the great ruler. This is the inscription that goes into the room where Heru is born in the temple. This is the wisdom hall of the great ruler of Upper and Lower Egypt, the royal person, one known by the name, one who is established in the righteousness, the truth of the Creator Spirit. That person who is the ruler of duality that allows egoism to emerge and kill the soul. This is also the hall for giving birth to the Redeemer of Osiris, the soul of the royal person. That is Horus, who is known as Anatej Nu Atef, protector, redeemer of his father. So what is happening here, and you can go, we had a whole multi-year course on this book, Temple of the Soul, and the teaching of the Temple of Assad at Abdu. The idea being given here is that this royal person for whom this temple was developed, which is the name is here, Menmahra, which is Seti the First. This person is being referred to by a title that belongs to the god Heru. The title is Anatej Nu Atef, redeemer of his father. So it means that this person, who is an initiate of the temple, is being referred to as that. So therefore, it means that Heru is not just this god who exists out there. It means that it's a person as well. It is you who are the initiate. You are Heru, and you are supposed to be the redeemer of your father. Your father is Assad. As you know the story, Assad was killed by his brother Set. Very succinctly, Set represents egoism. Assad represents the soul. Egoism has killed the soul. Remember the previous teaching of Annie that God has given souls to millions. So the soul is killed, but there is this redemptive movement, this movement that is inspired by Aset, by goddess Aset, intuitional wisdom, about the nature of the truth behind the objects. In this case, the illusory aspect is Set, and Set represents your ego idea of yourself as something other than a manifestation of the divine. If you have any kind of idea of yourself aside from that, then it means that you're caught up in delusion. Again, if you do not see yourself as a manifestation who has been given a soul by the divine, if you do not regard yourself, your body, your personality as an image, not as an absolute reality, if you have that regard about yourself, then you're in a state of delusion. And there needs to be a redemptive movement to fix that delusion that is making you, and that delusion is egoism. That's making you caught up in this idea that you are a reality and that you exist in fact, and that this life is an important life and the only life you have. You know all those ideas, and that you are this thing called the body, or you're a male or female, and you were born a particular day, and that's real and true, and it actually happened. Ignoring all of the evidence of the illusionist of that. Changeableness started at one time and ends in another time. All that is, by definition, illusory. But egoism makes you hold on to the idea that this is real and this is true and I exist and I am. Then the next stage is egoism. I am bigger than anyone else. I am better than you. I am, or I'm a male, so I'm stronger. I'm stronger than women, so I'm better than women. All these kinds of delusions. So if you realize that you have a Heru nature, that means a redemptive spiritual movement. It means spiritual aspiration. That is the higher truth that is represented by the symbolism of Heru. And when you take on that mantle, it means that you are initiating yourself on the road of spiritual redemption and enlightenment. Because you are going to eventually allow that soul that was killed to be revived and to reign supreme in your life. So your soul awareness is what has been killed by your egoism. Your Heru nature is going to redeem that, is going to vanquish the egoism and allow the soul nature to arise again in your conscious awareness as an absolute reality. Let's go a little step further and seal the deal. This passage comes from the Asarian Resurrection text, which is in this book right here, Egyptian Book of the Dead, Hieroglyph Translations, featuring the Assyrian resurrection. This is the story that I've just briefly mentioned: Assad, Aset, Heru, the murder of Assad, and the revival of Assad by Heru, etc., etc. Usheb her tef amun se su zedeg se su. Who would answer for? So this is the final statement coming out of a series of statements by Goddess Aset. Her purpose in bringing Heru into the world and giving birth to Heru, she wanted someone who would come in to answer for the crimes that were done to Assad by Set. Someone who would respond and to seek justice to correct the injustice and stand up for and redeem his father, Assad. So I hid Heru. She conceived Heru, and then she gave birth to Heru, and then she hid Heru in the papyrus marsh. I concealed him. That's important when you have, uh, remember what I mentioned earlier, you have these teachings, you go to Kunum Nefer, and then you go home, you watch TV, or you watch a show, or you go party, and all the stuff goes out the window, you don't hold on to it. And then the egoism creeps back in and excites your senses, excites your feelings, and you forget that what you're perceiving is divine, and you take on the idea of making it as as if it is an absolute reality what you're dealing with. Your friends, your car, your family, yourself, your partying, your experience of happiness, joy, sorrow. When you're having sorrow, it's really bad and this is the worst. I want to kill myself. When you're having happiness, oh, I want to be happy forever. I want things to never change. All that is illusory and it leads you to delusion. You can never be truly abidingly happy with relating yourself as an object in the time and space. Because that's what you're doing. You're considering yourself an object. Your body, your personality, and your thoughts and feelings are all objects in reference to the absolute, which is the transcendent soul level of your being. So you don't consider yourself in that soul level, it means that you're objectifying reality and that you're living in the world of time and space. And therefore you're caught up in and susceptible to the delusions of time and space. So you have to, when you give birth to this Heru nature, at the beginning you have to hide it. You have to protect it. Because your egoism is going to want to squash it. Because the egoism wants to survive. So a friend comes and tells you, let's go to a yoga class or let's meditate. And then the ego comes in with the negative feelings because then you're not going to be able to enjoy yourself and go out drinking with your other friends or partying and you like doing that. So it's going to come in and squash it. And it's going to say, I don't feel like doing that. I don't like, sitting quietly or attending a class on philosophy or things like that. So you have to hide your spiritual aspiration, even from yourself in the beginning. Otherwise, it's like you plant a seed and then it starts sprouting. If you don't fence it off, you don't put a little moat of water or something around it, bugs might get into it, or a goat might come in and eat it, or a dog might come and trample it, or a cat may go and pee on it or something and mess it up. So she concealed him. Baby Heru represents newly born spiritual aspiration that is defenseless and must be protected and kept safe and hidden from outside egoistic forces that can harm it while it is young. And I, Aset, as the goddess of wisdom, do this task. So wisdom protects your spiritual aspiration. Wisdom will tell you not to engage yourself and not to go too far too soon engaging yourself. You might think, oh, you might have soda water enthusiasm. Oh, I can do this. I am Heru, and I can do anything I want to do. I'm a hero. I can deal with my boss. I can deal with a drug dealer down the street. I can do going beyond your capacities. I can put myself in a tempting situation because I'm Heru. And then when you go into your negative situation of temptation, it could be drugs, it could be sex, it could be candy, it could be food, it could be all those anything. driving car fast because you like excitement. It could be anything, and you think you're beyond it. And really, it is the excitement of the RU that you have accumulated and the misunderstandings about the nature of reality. So you're not ready to go out there and to be able to challenge the delusion of life yet. So you need to work slowly, keep on attending class, keep on, handling your worldly life, but trying to infuse wisdom little by little into it, extricating yourself from that, eventually leading yourself to a life, even though you're in the world, a life that is governed by the inner higher reality that you intellectually understand and then you intuitionally experience. And then you won't be relying and leaning on externalities for your happiness or your existence, and you will not fall under the delusion. This is from the Temple of Assad. This is the north panel in the Assad room of the temple. This is another reference that is given. I'm going over kind of this. Spent quite a bit of time on probably like a couple of sessions on this particular panel. But here it is being reinforced again to us about the nature of Heru, Assad, and the the temple initiate, the Pera, who is the human. So relating to the identity of the human, the identity of Heru, the identity of Assad, and Goddess Aset, who is intuitional wisdom, is also there. So un nefer di f n k he m suten tawi jeta her aset Heru, whose title is the beautiful existence. That's un nefer, the supreme abode of every soul. He gives to you your existence in the form of the ruler of the two lands. So Un Nefer is Asar, it is Nebuchadnezzar. That is giving you your form, that is giving you your existence. Your existence did not come from physical parents or from uh, earthly sustenance in the form of food or the air. Your true existence comes from the divine. And your form, your also your station in life, your position, that's all given. That's all owed to the divine. Meaning, at this point, this initiate, this person has become master of duality. And that is, all of this is owed to the divine that has led you to this. He provides to you the capacity of being a person on the throne, known as Heru, forever. Therefore, I, Heru, the ruler of Upper and Lower Egypt, bring you to your father in your name, Heru, to take, it says ours, should say your seat on the throne of forever. Very quickly, in ancient Egypt, the throne of the pharaoh, the Pera, is known as the throne of Heru. So whoever sits on that throne, be it a man or a woman, is a Heru. And Heru at this point means the one who has redeemed the soul. and that person has led the personality to victory over egoism. So when you become the pharaoh of your life, you have become the ruler of your life. And that is what it means to become a royal person. And all the initiates are royal people. Now, the idea here that you can see in the image on the left, the top left, this character on the right, and that's the god Heru. Heru is ushering in this personality, who is the initiate, to meet Assad, who is the third from the right, who is sitting on the throne. So Heru is ushering in this royal person, and he's referring to the royal person as Heru. So Heru is referring to the royal person as Heru. So Heru, the god who is the representation of this redemptive quality, is referring to you, the initiate, as Heru, who are the redeemer of your life. And not only that, that Heru God is leading you, the Heru, who is the hero of your life, the redeemer of your life, to the to your throne, which is the throne of Assad, which is the throne of your soul. So your soul has been redeemed, your soul is alive, your soul is on the throne of you, who are the personality who sits on the throne. So your soul, your Heru nature, your human nature, all come together in this redemptive movement. So you have not lost your soul, your father Assad, that comes back and is redeemed, and you're sitting on the throne as the child of that same Assad. And because these are his parents, the Assad and Assad are the parents. So you are Heru, you are sitting on the throne of Heru, you are the human, and Assad is on the throne. So all of it comes together. It is all redeemed. You're living in an integrated truth, the higher reality of your existence. This is uh, arguably, I should say, because there are so many similarly important panels in the temple, but this one brings this whole idea of the Heru nature, the success of the Heru nature symbolism, the idea that of you yourself as a Heru person, and the redemptive task that is the symbolism of what Heru represents ideally, all coming together in completion. Now, of course, this is spiritual enlightenment that's being depicted here. This is the transcendental self-discovery that's being represented here. And that's what the symbolism of this panel is all about. Thousands, millions of people have probably at this point have visited the temple, and how many know this grand secret? They walk through, and I spent hours in this room. This is so glorious, and I see people coming through. They're awed. They look around at the panels, but they don't know what's going on, and it's a shame to that standpoint. But you know, that's the world. They at least have come interested, but will they come again? That's depends on their Aru. Conclusion. This presentation explores the profound philosophical dimensions of ancient Egyptian symbolism, particularly focusing on Heru. A central theme is that symbols in the ancient traditions serve as gateways to deeper truths beyond literal interpretation, with the fundamental understanding that representation is not reality, only reality is reality. The presentation emphasizes that what we perceive in the world are manifestations of divine existence, the Sekeru, with symbols being pointers rather than the ultimate truth. Heru specifically symbolizes the awakening spiritual consciousness within humans, serving as a redemptive force, whose mission is to restore divine order and justice by combating the destructive ego forces, represented by Set, that have compromised the soul essence, Asar. According to these teachings, Heru represents our higher spiritual aspiration that must be nurtured and protected until it can fully mature to redeem our soul from the limitations of materialism and ego identification, ultimately restoring us to our divine nature and purpose. Om Peta Peta Peta. Peta. Any questions or comments? And then Sabida has a few words she'd like to add.
Just say bye, do. A lot in this little package here you put together for us, but it's a lot of fundamental things to chew on, as well as an extension of the process of Heru. So and hope those who were partaking in the presentation got what they required or what they needed for their own personal evolution. I'm not sure if anyone has any questions or anything. Do a say bye.
Okay, Dua. So this is being recorded, so it'll be available for later viewing.
Neat.
If anyone wants to go through it again. And so Sabida will come on now. That's it.
Okay, so bye. Dua.
Dja, can you all hear me from here?
Hey, Sabida.
Did my camera come on?
Mm-hmm.
I can see.
One comment before Sabida finishes. For those who would like to participate in a group picture, when Sabida is finished, we can put our cameras on for those who would like to. We take a group picture to commemorate or to acknowledge this stop in time and space.
Dja.
Just Sabida.
So I can't see, for whatever reason, I can't see my picture. But I trust I'm speaking to you all. Can you put up, you don't have a picture of Seth there, right? Can you put up a picture of, I guess of Heru then? Just from one of your slides. Probably the latter slides. Even the last one.
The one here.
The last slide.
This one?
Where they had the throne. Your conclusion, sorry. Yeah. That's good. Is that an AI picture you made?
Yes.
I just want to share that image there. Sivama's been experimenting with this AI program to create images to give that ethereal kind of beyond the mundane world feel of spiritual realm. And so that is a very nice picture. They don't always come out the way he inputs, so sometimes he has to settle. but
Yeah, very often.
but yeah. So I just wanted to share um, uh, that Sibama mentioned about egoism, and this is just like one point that Sibaja wanted to share, and about in terms of symbolism, we have the character of Set, and I just thought of this. I wanted to share this, so I don't have a picture of Set there um, on the screen. I don't know if we have Set and I have one there, but the character of Set is, as we know, represents like egoism, and we've seen like the character Set represented in the Assyrian Resurrection as a very dull personality, kills, murders. And then we also see in the Kemetic iconography um, the character Set represented as on the same plane as Heru, um, and they both are showering onks over the royal personality. We see that like in the temple of Abu Simbel, in the Heteru temple there. Beautiful image there. And then we also see, which most of you have seen, and it's in the books, the image of, which is linked to Setna's name as Setna Nebi Ra. Set is the protector of the bark of the Ra, where Set is protecting the bark from Apep, that represents chaos, that goes against creation, goes against the creative energy. And so Set there is like creating and making the way for creator spirit energy to move through. So we've seen like these, aspects of the egoism, and we know the process of spirituality is to purify the egoism and to move it from like dull and agitated, which is like the impure. And then there's even a calm aspect of it that is nice, that is good for the aspirant to move there, that still has a little bit impurity. And then there's the lucid aspect, or the Beck aspect, which is like the Setna Nebi Ra. It's like set after the ego has relinquished victory to Heru. That Heru, the spiritual aspect that Sibama talked about, the spiritual awareness, that is the true identity of the personality. So I wanted to just also emphasize that the egoism is the identity. It's like it's not the body, it's not the mind. So even though the mind can become quote unquote like a resistance to the forward movement, the mind itself, in and of itself, is not the enemy, because sages also still do need the mind to communicate or function in time and space to some degree. So the issue is the misidentification. So I appreciated the way that Sibama talked about the symbols, and that when he looked up the definition, how of the word symbols, how it related to like as arbitrary. It was just an arbitrary based on what Setna talked about this too. Based on the culture, like we have the traffic light here, it means this. If we go put that in another country, or there would be lots of accidents because that's not how they navigate their traffic. So these symbols that we as human beings have become acculturated to, not only in this lifetime but in previous lifetimes, if we want to deal with the aspect of reincarnation. However, this lifetime is usually enough, and it kind of is like a consolidation of the issues of the previous lifetime. And so the identity, all the symbolism in this culture, not all of it, because we've had church, we have Christianity, we have these other things, but a lot of the symbolism, when it's not mystically oriented, when it's not oriented towards the higher reality of spirit, and even the Orthodox religions fit into that category. They are not oriented in that way, which is why the focus is on mysticism, where we get to the underlying oneness, and then we get to the transcendental self with the consideration of mysticism. So most of us, you know, Sibajad did, grew up in this culture with its symbols, and not necessarily this culture. I come from the Caribbean, you know, so that culture, it's symbols, but it's all worldly symbols. You know, the idea that there is a God is definitely there, but a lot of what we are experiencing and exposed to, it's like Sibama talked about it, just like he's used in the past, like the example of the House of Mirrors. It's just like one illusion reflecting off of another illusion, reflecting off of another illusion. And so this is what the mind and body has basically been living in this world and just really trying to survive because like nobody really you know when your parents came in and when um, you know, even many of us who discovered the teachings like, you know, later in life came in, there was no like little, this is the book of life and this is how we're doing it. So everybody, you know, humanity as a whole has been trying to figure out how to survive, you know, through all the evolutionary aspects. So that's what the mind and body basically, it, it has these mechanisms that are suited to survival. And its decisions are not always decisions related to the higher self because it's been indoctrinated and conditioned to a world of time and space that doesn't even deal with death of the physical body in a right way. So all of this is like, so all of its like realities is like how to survive, how to survive what, how to save them, this physical body from dying. Like that's what survival means. How do I protect myself? How do I feed myself? How do I protect my ideas also? Because like you see people, there's a lot of ideology that really is in conflict um, that people have that brings about, you know, I guess it's thing called tribes and tribalism. You know, it's like a group of people who have your ideology because then you're trying to protect that ultimately to survive. So that's what like the if you want to call it the lower self or the old self or the you know that's basically what there is there and it's hardwired. Part of it is hardwired into the animal nature of the personality to survive, but there are many psychological aspects that the human being has in terms of mind and reasoning and conscious awareness that go beyond the hardwired nature of the survival aspects of the stress response of the physical body. But what has happened is like not having had a higher type uh, of conditioning of, of that the teachings offer, not having had that, the mind basically fighting for itself, not even having had good psychology. Like a lot of psychology now is like getting into meditation is the thing, mindfulness is the thing. They're interspersing a lot of Buddhism and like you know positive psychology or mindfulness and these things like that. So they're kind of like coming to the same road, but a lot of it is like having to. I think was it? I don't know if I heard Web Sadness say here. I think in another presentation he said you have to unlearn what you've learned. That's possible to some degree, but it's like so much to unlearn that that would be like and then what we're learning is unreality, as Sibama said, like you know, um, and then what we are or delusionary reality, an illusionary reality, and what we are unlearning is about the illusionary reality. So part of that is needed for spiritual evolution. However, when we come into the teachings like this, like the symbolism of shifts to a focus of like Heru, it doesn't stay on like this egoism. And again, egoism is like just it's like I like to use the word also. It's just like a misidentification. It's like a brainwashing or a conditioning to misidentify. And so what we're really trying to do is like have spiritual knowledge, like you know, Siva Masarda taking like this is our identity and real symbolism, spiritual symbolism, mystical symbolism is aligning us to that higher reality. It's leading us there. It's keeping us there. It's focusing us there. While the conditioned mind and body are they're going to try to do their thing to survival. So it does get into be like a little bit of a complicated aspect of the prospect. And I don't have the symbolism of the Heru, that would be nice. So those of you who've seen that, it's called Heru with two heads. It's Heru, and then it has the head of Set sticking out the side of it. And so the Harufi aspect is when there's this identification struggle going on. So it seems like it's a struggle with the mind body aspect, and in a way it's a struggle with the mind, but really the struggle is not specifically with the mind, it's only with the aspect of the mind that is the identification with the mind and body as being the reality and how it relates to other aspects of the illusionary reality of the world in time and space. The screen share went up.
Hmm?
Oh, do it for sharing whomever. So that's one aspect where the ego personality has been purified, and what it means is that it now realizes that the true reality is spirit, is transcendental spirit. You see or you raise above the royal personality. So that royal personality now has like this balance of the ego personality, because even a sage has to walk around in time and space and get things accomplished, do lectures, write books, and you need your mind and body for that. At the same time, the reality is that Heru nature that is above, like the Uraeus, which is also Heru Behudet. And so I just wanted to emphasize that even though the body mind personality seems to be like presenting resistance to one's forward spiritual movement, in a way it is, but the resistance it's presenting is just based on its whole, we say ignorance of self, ignorance of true knowledge, and this egoism that comes out of it with this misunderstood identification, this misidentification. And so it doesn't need to be beat up, in some traditions, like, the body is like put through all these horrible types of austerities in the name of spirituality. So it doesn't need to be beat up, and even the mind doesn't really need to beat up, but it does need to be realigned to its proper function, how it's supposed to function in reality, and the body being like the temple of the soul, like what is the role of the body, what is the role of the mind in this process. So they do have to be realigned, and there's resistance because it's like they don't know any better. It's like almost like you're trying to teach like a toddler, or sometimes like it's talked about trying to train a puppy that has run around and lived its life running around in nature and peeing and pooping wherever it wants, and now you feel bad for the puppy and you bring it into the house to give it shelter, and the puppy, what is he going to do in the house? He's going to run around and pee. He's not being a bad puppy. It's just what he's conditioned to do, and is like being a bad puppy from your judgmental aspect of like, oh, this is not right and this is wrong. But the puppy's just doing what the puppy knows. So if you want the puppy to actually, become calm, to learn where to peep, learn where to poop, all of that, then it has to go through like a level of training. If you abuse the puppy and beat the puppy every time it pees and poops, that doesn't teach it where to go or how to do it. Another example like you can think of is like if you have a very dear friend, like maybe a child or a very cherished friend of yours, like a really dear friend, and maybe they have a disease like that is like diet related, like that could be improved and or cured by diet, and they're suffering, but this is like what they've known. Culturally, they're just in line with their culture of eating like the meat, but now you want to help them, so you go and you try to like talk to them, but it's like whoop, it's like it's fallen in. It feels like it's fallen in deaf ears because they have no understanding what you do. But the question is, how are you going to work with that friend? Like you really made this your goal, something you want to do because you want this friend, cherished friend, to be healthy and be okay, and you feel that they can do it. That they, that you have a good feeling in a sense because you see how they live their life and they've made other changes, so you have a good feeling that they can change it. So you want them to, you kind of like have in your heart that it can be done. Other people have done it. Even somebody else in their family has done it. So, you could feel that those are all examples that could be used that they can do it too. But how are you going to get this person to do it? Are you going to like call them names and call them fatty, or call them like carnivore, or call them how are you going to get them to kind of like uh, consider changing their ways, right? You're going to try to bring information. You're going to implore on them that this is you want them to consider these things for their health, and you're going to bring just as not information about eating meat, but you're going to bring it like how meat is directly related to this condition of the health, and you're going to go through this whole process. So my hope, what I wanted to just emphasize is that uh, just being uh, patient with oneself, just like one would have to be with the puppy, one would have to be with a friend. That's while you're, and part of that patience, as Ibama said, is like for the neophyte Heru, the Heru that's coming into the teachings, is to have some level of protection of yourself. Don't put yourself to go where there's the all meat buffet when you decide you want to try not eating meat. Ibama said, don't put yourself like in these higher temptations. But to understand, try to gain understanding and insight into like how the mind works, because the mind really, it's like input and output, and it's just like gotten a lot of input for this reality, time and space, and so that's what it knows. And now coming into the teachings, like you're trying to like now you're looking up, metaphorically speaking, to the heavens and realizing like, hey, there's a whole other world here. And so now you have to, that's why we call it integration. So you're trying to integrate this Heru nature that you're learning about, you're trying to experience through your meditation, and you're trying to shift the mind to understand that reality. As Sebama said, that everything in nature is divine, has a divine basis. Um, and that's, the symbols in the meditative nectar, they're all like directing us to that awareness. And so, to have patience with oneself, to have even a little compassion, because you're going to feel like a little bad for your friend, maybe a little, like you want them like to be healthy. So you want the mind to be healthy. You want the mind to be able to be your ally. You want the mind to become purified. So how do you work with it? And so I say this because sometimes, for aspirants, in that image of, I don't know if website, if that was you that put it on, you can like see one with the Heru with two heads image, but that one, it's like, and even the Assyrian resurrection myth, right? At one point, goddess Set was trying to shoot Set, the egoism, and she hit Heru. The 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 personality goes through like a whole kind of evolution leading to transformation, and in that process there's some confusion that occurs. So there will be some identification of Set as the divinity, like I like when you say Nuke Neverger, sometimes it's Set saying that. And that's all part of the process. That's still like if we were heard what Simama said, if we were saying that and we understand the whole aspect of symbolisms, and that those divine words, the Medu Nectar, are aligning us to our higher truth, then there's no problem like with the mind saying that. The problem is that when the mind says it and it's identified with itself as you know, um, this Nebuchadnezzar, that is where the conflict is. But that's going to take time to, there we go, Dua. I don't know who's sharing, but much Dua. Ni. So this is Heru with two heads, it's called. One with An Ma'at, which means like not Ma'at, and the other with Ma'at. So it's going to be like an integration of the personalities going on. And the second aspect has been hardwired in the body to survive. And the psychological aspect, when it's not aligned to the higher truth, gets caught up in that survival aspect. So a lot of psychological complexes develop related to what I need to survive, even beyond like the basics that the physical body reacts to for its survival mechanisms. There comes to be a lot of like ideas and psychological threats that get mixed up in that personality. And so to identify with that personality that is mixed up in that way, it's like, can be difficult, challenging. And then when that personality is asserting itself, when it's asserting itself, even as the aspirant is trying to learn and understand its Heru nature, then it can still even be more challenging. And I guess what I want to emphasize is that's just a stage. These are just stages. As long as the aspirant continues to attend the Canoe Nefer, the good association, and not just like good association we're gathering to hang out, but that association which aligns with the higher truth of self, then this process will continue to evolve until there's transformation, until the identity becomes established that, my true self, my true reality is Heru. The ego personality, agrees like, yeah, that's really the true identity. Is spiritual, is Heru. Other names are used, Ra, Nebuchadnezzar, is that, whatever we are identifying that higher reality as, that is beyond time and space. So I think that was my notes. So we spend not only time, for sure, putting that back. So we spend not only time on learning, there is an aspect of that, and then we also spend time learning. That's the unlearning relates to the impure mind from its identification of the mind-body personality as the self. So there's some unlearning that goes along there. It's like, hey, what do you mean I'm not the self? I used to be in charge of things. I used to tell you what to do. I used to control you. Hey, let's go get some ice cream. Let's go. Okay, let's go now. Why can't we go now? Why can't we go have some chicken? What is the problem? So, that aspect has to be unlearned. Why not to do those things? And then there's the learning why to eat vegetarian, why to practice meditation, why to practice mat, why to be compassionate to oneself and others, and the ultimate, to remove ignorance is the who I am, symbolized here by the Urias as Heru Behudet, or Nebuchadnezzar, or the goddesses, the Urias, the Wajit.